Hi everybody. Let's see who's coming on board today. I hope everybody's doing good on this Thursday. I've got some things to share with you today about, I thought we'd do a little bit of focus on some questions that people might have on storytelling. And I just wanted to answer a question I received. Someone asked me about, so how do I really tell a good story? Hi, Gregory. Yeah, we'll get to my guest, my secret guest, Gregory Smith, in a second. But I wanted to, someone asked about storytelling. Like, how do I tell a good story? What are some elements of telling a good story, especially if I'm trying to get a certain message across? And so just wanted to kind of run people through some really important steps of storytelling that might be helpful as you're crafting your message for your brand or your mission if you're an organization. So the first thing in storytelling is to grab people's attention. And it could be something that you do with your face. It could be a joke that you tell, but something that kind of focuses everybody's attention on what you're doing, so that you have their focus and you can hopefully tell a story that they'll listen to and remember. The second important piece of storytelling is to build a scene. So being detailed about why a certain character is in a certain place, or if you're a business or an organization, creating maybe a scene about something that you do or a product that you offer or a solution that you kind of want to allude to that you help create. So building a scene, creating a picture in people's minds, introducing characters to that to help people really kind of understand what you're talking about and who's involved. And then the third piece of it is really kind of building the plot. So telling your audience about something that's happening between the characters. It could be, that there's tension going on or conflict or a big issue that someone's trying to solve. And maybe that someone who's solving it is you as your business or your organization. But to really kind of paint the picture of the problem and how it is then that you are then part of that solution. And so if you kind of bring people through a journey of, of what can happen or what is happening that's maybe bad or confusing or frustrating, or that people need an awareness of, and then bringing them to a place of solution or conclusion about what you do or what you can offer that helps them achieve or overcome that conflict, is kind of part of your plot. It's really important to share detail, especially if you're a business or an organization that can share a heartfelt message, maybe about someone that you've affected or a customer that's been improved or helped in some way. Those stories, those personal connections are really important because people remember them. And then when they're retelling the story, they tend to reiterate that information. So that's something that is important to include and to be thinking about in how you craft your message. And then making sure at the end there's a call to action. There's something you want people to do. Either you want customers to buy something, and because you've created this story and you're the solution and you can provide something for them, then you want them to ultimately act and buy or engage with you in some way. With organizations, it could be that you're sharing this impact, something wonderful that you're doing, and then you're going to ask people to give a donation or participate or volunteer in some capacity to help your organization. So hopefully that gives you just some tips on storytelling, and we can talk a little bit more about that if anyone has any other questions. But I wanted to introduce, let's see if I can actually do this. Let me see if I can get Mr. Gregory Smith on screen. Let's see. Stand by. Let's see if he's on. I wanted to introduce a friend of mine, Gregory Smith, and we'll wait for him. I don't know if he's on or not, but I can't get him on camera at the moment. but wanted to bring him on to talk a little bit about virtual events. So if we can get him on, then we will we'll add him, and let's see if I can do this. Bear with me. I see you're there, Gregory. I just somehow cannot bring you on camera. Let's see. Gregory, try, I don't know, are you joined from your phone or your computer? If you're on your computer, try joining from your phone, and let's see if it works that way. And in the meantime, I'll talk about something else, and we'll try to make a connection that way. So anyway, I'm going to bring Gregory Smith on at some point, hopefully today. We're going to try to make that work. Go on your phone, Gregory. See if it works that way. Go into Facebook and join that way, and let's see if that works. But anyway, Gregory works with Qtego, and he is an amazing resource. He's in charge of, I think, the Southeast region for Qtego, which is a mobile bidding company. Well, they do so much more than mobile bidding, but they do mobile bidding for events, auctions, for-profit events, nonprofit events. They have a lot of really great virtual solutions for people, and they're an amazing platform. Their team is phenomenal. I've worked with a number of other businesses that have done similar things, and by far they're just, they're just great. And I have not been to an event that I've attended or one that I've personally been a part of putting on that I've never had a problem with any of their execution. So wanted to make sure that you guys heard from him, especially as it relates to virtual events. There's a lot of organizations and businesses. I know there's lots of Zoom calls going on and other things, but from an event perspective, if you're looking to transition to something virtual, which I know many places are because we don't know what the future holds, I would highly recommend working with Gregory and his team. And so anyway, we'll wait a little bit longer and see if we can bring him on. In the meantime, I also received some other questions from a few folks about branding and marketing. And it's interesting. There's a difference between branding and marketing. Lots of us use marketing and branding, those words, interchangeably, as if they're the same thing, but they're not. And so one of the interesting things is, so if you kind of separate the two words, I'm going to define them each and then kind of talk about them a little bit more. But branding is really who you are as a company. It's what you stand for. It's your mission. It's your values. It's, what makes you special, what makes you unique, what are those kind of properties and core principles of who you are that are important. And a brand is really something that happens before you market anything. You really have to know who you are, what you stand for, what you're going to tell people that you can do. And so that's kind of the first step. Marketing is the process, the tools, the strategies, the ways that you're going to connect with the people that you want to attract that are going to align with your core principles and values and your kind of unique proposition. Marketing is really the action steps. It's how are we going to connect with our audience? How are we going to implement a strategy? That's what marketing is. And that can look a lot of different ways for a lot of different people. And so if you think of branding as first, that's what happens first. I define who I am, and then you're looking at marketing as second, which is really, what are the changes? What are the actions? What are the things that I need to do and tweak along the way to make my strategies work so that I can keep connecting with my with people or my audience that aligns with my brand. Kind of think of them that way. So branding's kind of forever. Marketing is kind of a changing element depending on what needs to happen. And then, it's really kind of diving into, branding. A lot of times we associate that with, logos and colors and where we position things on our materials. And it can include all of that. But if you're working with, your staff or people within your company, it's really helping them embody kind of who you are as an organization as part of your culture. Your brand goes beyond just what it looks like or what you say in a marketing strategy. It's really what you represent. What is it that your employees are saying? How do you talk to customers? What are some of those core principles that are involved in that? So think about those kinds of things when you think about branding. Once you have that locked up and really figure out what your brand is, then the marketing strategies come in. And like I said, those take many different forms. For some companies, that's social media and everything's online and you're connecting with people virtually. And so, people say, well, I need a social media strategy. Well, it's not incredibly difficult to put together a strategy as long as you know who your audience is and you know what your core values are. If you know that, then you can choose the different platforms and ways to connect with people on social media. If you're, a company that does more direct, business person to person, then it's really understanding where your audience is, in the marketplace. Are you marketing to businesses? Are you marketing to individuals? Do you need to, have a customer base and create a following that way? And so it's really aligning your strategy with where your audience is, and then figuring out what you're going to say to them that aligns with what you've outlined that your brand to be, that's going to draw them in, that's going to make them want to engage with you and buy your services or your products, or give a donation to your organization. So anyway, there are two different things. Just want to make sure that I, kind of made a comment about that since there was a question. Does anyone else have a question that's watching about, marketing communications, customer retention, anything that might be, on your mind from that regard? I'll wait a couple seconds. Still trying to connect to Gregory. It's not working the way we thought. There have been, I was working with a client this week about some elements related to their kind of marketing and PR strategy. And, we just talked about branding and marketing and how those are kind of interconnected and how they work with each other. But the other thing, kind of element is marketing and PR. And although they're related, they're not necessarily the same thing either. The public relations strategy can be used as a marketing strategy. It can also kind of stand alone on its own, but most of the time I find that they're fairly integrated, meaning that there are elements of what you create from a marketing strategy standpoint in your content that can be reused or pitched from a public relations standpoint. And although there's a lot of marketing that people can do to create awareness, you can also use public relations to do that too. And really what it means is that you're connecting with, various media sources, maybe print, online, television, radio. I know people still listen to the radio, but anyway, it allows you to basically pitch a story or tell a story in a way that that engages an audience from an awareness perspective. And there should still be a call to action from a PR perspective. You should be telling a story or engaging people in a way that allows them to still make a connection with your company or your organization, even if they read something in the paper or they hear something or see something through social media. You still want that interactivity, but the public relations strategy is really thinking about how do I use these different media sources that maybe have a much broader audience than I do personally or as a brand, that can help me get my message out, that can help me tell my story in a different way, or that can create some awareness for something that it's hard for me to do on my own, and I need that audience to be able to leverage to help me get there. So we're working with some clients on some public relations strategies, and it's interesting because they all have very important things that they do, but they need to be able to talk to their audiences in a bit of a different way, and to create some awareness around some of the issues that they're handling. So let's see if I can. Gregory, it's not working. Sorry. I'm not sure what else to do on my end. we'll see if we can get him on. And in the meantime, we'll talk about a couple other things. Let's see. Come on. Yay! Hey, Gregory. Can you hear me?
Finally.
Sorry about difficulties on Facebook Live.
I can hear you now.
Okay, good. I was saying great things about you. I was talking about Qtego and a little bit about what the company does, but I was also sharing with everyone that we've had a lot of questions, especially from my personal clients, but then also people that have engaged with us online about virtual events and kind of what you're seeing, in the marketplace right now as people start to shift towards doing virtual events or considering doing it. So I thought it would be good to get you on the phone because you're an expert and your team is amazing at helping people bring that stuff to fruition. So I wanted you to talk a little bit about kind of what you're seeing in the marketplace. What are organizations or companies requesting that you guys have been a part of from helping to put on a virtual event?
Sure. I don't know if you can hear an echo. I don't know if it's just on my side, but I'll go ahead and fight through it. But first and foremost, thanks for letting me join in and see if I have anything good to say to help out. So I think really what is my side, but I'll go ahead and fight. Yeah, there we go. I'm going to turn myself down just because it's echoing. But I think kind of the timeline that we've seen is when COVID first started, nobody had any idea of what to do. They didn't know if it was kosher to go ask for, support. They didn't know if, procuring items was even right to do. Businesses were shut down. So everyone's heads were spinning. Even ours were. But, we said, you know what? We've got a virtual solution. Let's just kind of get creative and think about what we can do. So when it comes to the events, when it comes to the fundraising that we're seeing, we are finally seeing people in communities who, one, want something to do. They're bored out of their mind. And I think now, if anyone makes an excuse that they can't make it to your virtual event, or they can't hop online and bid on some auction items for fun and for entertainment, that's just an excuse. And that you're going to find that maybe, but for the events, it's thinking outside the box, because the things that we used to know and the way that we used to do things really don't play by the same rules anymore. For us, on an auction standpoint, I've had clients ask me, hey, what's the right amount of items to use? And I'm telling them, you know what, I don't have that answer if there's a correct answer, but because you're virtual, you're now appealing to a much larger demographic. So if you've had an event that has a couple of hundred people capped off in your ballroom, now you're reaching hundreds, maybe even thousands. And so, yeah, make it a garage sale. Do something. Do whatever you can to get any kind of money that you can get generated right now. So that's been a question. I also had a client talk about their sponsors today. And sponsors, even though they may not be able to give you all of the same amount of money that they have in previous years, they still want that exposure too. And so it may not be what you're used to, and I think as long as you go into it with that expectation, knowing that one, even though they may not be able to give you all of the same amount of money that they have in previous years, we may not see the same. They still want that exposure too. We may not see the same, and so it may not be what you're used to. And I think as long as you go, because a little bit of something sponsors, even though they may not be able to give you all of the same amount of money that they have in previous years, we may not see the same. They still want that exposure too. See the same, and so it may not be what you're used to. I think as long as you go, and sponsors, even though they may not be able to give you all of the same amount of money that they have in previous years, they still want that exposure too. See the same, and so it may not be what you're used to. I think as long as you go, and sponsors.
I think we lost him. All right, let's see if we can try this again. Well, oh, here we go. So I think he's right. He is right in the sense that sponsors still want to be involved. I think I was the audience. I think you're right about sponsors still want to be involved. Be able to, participate from the same financial level, but there is value in their brand and it being exposed to your audience. And so I think that a lot of us kind of get into that cycle of, well, I don't think they have enough money. I don't want to you so much as it is about what's the benefit for them to be involved with you. And so I think as fundraisers, as business owners, sometimes when we're talking about partnerships with people, we kind of get in our heads too much about what we have to offer and is it good enough and they can't pay it. But sometimes you have to put that aside and really focus on what is the value I bring to the table, what is the value they bring to the table, and how are we both working together to reach the same audience, and then figure out the money part.
Right.
But if you can both at least agree that you need to be working together, then it kind of all works itself out in some respect or another. I was going to ask you about, I've had clients who have been afraid or they're in the earlier stages of like their fundraising plans or their businesses that don't necessarily want to shell out a whole bunch of money to put on an event. And I've told them, I'm like, this is the best time to try this. You have nothing to lose. I mean, from a cost perspective, to put on a bricks and mortar event in a ballroom at a hotel and have the food and beverage minimums and all the other infrastructure, it's a lot of money. It's a lot of money to spend. And right now, while it's socially acceptable, you can kind of try something that is fairly inexpensive. The return is potentially greater. And you have broader reach, like you were mentioning. It's a good time to kind of try it. So how have you been kind of working with clients who aren't sure, they're on the fence? What are some things that you're telling them about, trying to dip their toes into virtual events?
Yeah, I don't know what you or anybody was able to hear previous.
We heard it, but then we heard you talking over yourself 5 times over.
Yeah, that's the worst. I mean, if you don't like hearing yourself talk, that was like a nightmare. Sorry about that, everybody. What do I tell beginners? I think you hit a good point. This is an opportunity to do things at a very low risk, even at a discounted rate. It's one of those things where I know us as a company, we understand to our best knowledge the current situation. I saw a post that said, don't keep saying everyone's in the same boat, because my boat might have holes in it, your boat might be a yacht, and it's just you can't really go off of that. So I always tell people, even before COVID, that there's the echo again for some reason, but you have to try things once. And to your point, it's not going to be catastrophic. And to be honest, we're seeing groups raise even more revenue than they did at their in-person event this past year, because they have a broader audience that they can take advantage of going virtual.
Right. Well, I was at, I attended the McDonald Training Center event, and I think you guys did the auction for it. And I think I was telling everybody the past 2 weeks about that.
Can you hear yourself again?
I can hear myself, and I don't really enjoy hearing myself. But anyway, I went to that event, and I was really amazed at how excellent it was. Which I know was, probably them, but the I mean, I participated in as Qtego is a mobile training partner, and it's always nice to get checked out. But I also think that they didn't have a whole bunch of stuff. I mean, they had like 30 items, and they raised 40 grand. necessarily know if it's the right time, that it is fairly low risk. If one person shows up, it's okay, because then that means everyone else won't know it was a disaster. You haven't spent tens of thousands of dollars to put something on. But I really do believe that it is a great opportunity to expand your audience. And Qtego just makes it easy. I mean, I know you guys do more than mobile bidding as a company. And, so maybe talk a little bit about some of the other services that you're seeing people engage with Qtego. What are some things that you guys, maybe didn't traditionally think would be, have not been kind of high demand, but are right now because of, what organizations and companies need?
So some of the other features that we do are ticket sales, sponsorship sales, text to give. We just started a text to give campaign with I'm not going to name who, but a food type of company who is providing food in the community. And within a few days, we've seen over $10,000 or $11,000 come in just a few days for them. Again, people are wanting to show their support. They're feeling philanthropic. And you made a really good point earlier that, oftentimes we're too hard on ourselves. And as fundraisers, we almost think too much. And I saw a quote that said, don't be the type of person that spends half the time, thinking of an idea and then the other half figuring out how to execute on it.
Right.
Just do it. And so sometimes pulling the trigger, you'll be surprised in what you see. So with Qtego, we've got the mobile bidding, the texting, for the donations, ticket sales. The virtual, though, we think is actually something being birthed that will be a positive addition in the future.
Right.
So when you've got these in-person events, think about now you have the ability to sell virtual event tickets to whoever you want. So if you're captivated at 200 people, what if you can sell 500 virtual event tickets? You're giving people in your community who may have never been able to afford that $500 a plate ticket, you're giving them a peek into who you are, what you do, what the event's like, and who knows what kind of new donor might come out of that. Or I'm sure you're going to be able to take this video, parts of it, and put it on as a recording. Someone in a week, or they're going to be able to watch it and say, oh, how do I get involved? So we're really focusing right now all of our energy on virtual fundraising in light of taking a full event, being able to broadcast it to any device that you have, include your auctioneer, include your MC, include your entertainment. You can do that all through us, or you can hire a production company and we can work together. And I think now more than... Go ahead.
I didn't realize that you guys could actually help different do the program elements of the event. Is that something I didn't know that? Tell me a little bit about how that works.
Sure. So we have a few ways of doing it. There are a couple of applications that we've added to where our team, so for those of you who don't know, when you work with Qtego, we definitely are hands-on. We want to form a relationship. We want you to be able to reach out to that person versus a chat box. And so we're building that relationship with you. Build a virtual run of show with you. And so we layer out these different things. So if at your physical event, you start off with some sort of welcome video, we layer that into the show where there's a welcome video. Then we can have it to where there's a live video like this, people talking in real time. And then maybe it's another video to showcase your sponsors. Then you bring, an auctioneer on screen, talking about the fund to need, talking about the live auctions, and you really just layer it out as you would a normal event.
So our friend Jason Alpert's watching.
Yep. So Jason Alpert Enterprises, you can't go wrong. His guys Jeff and Joe. We've done so much with them in the Tampa Bay area and other locations. One thing to really think of is, you know, people who do radio, because now these people who are leading these virtual events, they don't have the crowd in front of them that they're used to feeding that energy off of. So going after people who are used to talking to a blank wall and creating that energy out of thin air, those are going to be the types of people that you want leading your virtual events, because they're used to that.
Right. Well, and I will say about Jason, and maybe we'll have him on. Maybe we'll have him on with you and I on another one. Talk a little bit more about events. But Jason is amazing to talk to here. I'm like the best auctioneer. I'm not saying that lightly. There's a lot of really bad here, and him and his team are always amazing. You just know what they're doing. It's a seamless company event, and when you have someone that knows what they're doing, it makes a huge difference in engaging your audience. So I would imagine that is. I'd like to talk to him more about how he's doing with the virtual side of things. With the auction, it's different to read people when you're not in front of them and you're not in the crowd versus the virtual side. So maybe we'll bring him on to talk about that. But I'm really excited to hear that you guys do all of that, because I think that many organizations, and I was talking about this yesterday, I was trying to tell them that describe this event, and they said, well, we don't have the bandwidth. We just don't have the bandwidth to do all of that. That feels very overwhelming to us. And me, as a solutions provider, saying, oh, it's not that overwhelming, I can help you with it. But to actually know that you guys are doing that makes it even better, because then from a support perspective, they know that they have a team of people behind them to bring it accomplished, and it's not on them to have the knowledge to figure out how to actually bring it together.
Sure.
I love that. So we're going to have to talk offline about some of our clients and maybe we can go in that direction a little bit more. So is there anything else? We're going to probably close out this session in a couple minutes. So is there anything else that you want to people that you're here in the marketplace that is important for folks to know? So
I feel like the one thing that I've been trying to focus on is how can you provide, I don't know if it's the right wording, but cyclical for everybody involved. Meaning, I'll give you an example. One of our clients, they're selling pint glasses, and they're selling them as merchandise, $20, $25 a piece. And so the families of this foundation, they purchase it, and so the money goes to the organization. However, the organization has partnered up with the local restaurant and brewery. And so in a way, it's this cycle of, I'm buying this, so I give money to the organization. I then, as a purchaser, get a discount at the restaurant and the brewery for showing my support, and then it's bringing in revenue to the brewery. So it's, again, this kind of cyclical win-win-win. And so I've been trying to think outside the box on typical items. You're trying to think of these experiences, but I think now more than ever, we have an opportunity to create new ideas and concepts on how can we help more than just the organization. Well, we can make it to where everybody gets a little piece of this economy that's out there, and people are dying to just go out. And with restaurants starting to open up now, I think that more than ever, they're going to want to have that immediate extra, business coming in. I would just say, don't be afraid. Don't limit yourself to I can't go ask this person. I feel like as long as you approach it and start off with, hey, I understand that things are different, but I just wanted to make a presentation of, this is what we're looking for. If you can make it happen, great. If not, we understand. But just, I'll steal a quote and I'll end with this, but CEO's Delta had a quote a few weeks ago, and he said, we're taking advantage of this time to create the business that we want, not focus all of our energy on trying to figure out who we once were and how things operated. And I think that now more than ever, we all can do that. Let's take the time to form our new habits, form our new concepts. And it's really, again, I think we're going to come out of this better with new, fresh ideas on how to do events and how to fundraise.
I agree. And I think, I think you're right, when it comes to the win-win-win, I've talked a little bit about, really listening and partnership and being an engaged listener and coming up with solutions. And I think that the more we think about how we can collaborate beyond just ourselves and our audience to make it really a feel-good for more, for us, if you bring in a partner, I think that sets up relationships down the road to be that much more impactful because we've done something to help someone else that we didn't normally think that we could. So I love that. That makes my heart happy from a collaboration standpoint. So thank you for being on today.
People are going to remember who reached out and partnered with them during this time when the time is good and the world is good. So keep that in mind too. I mean, be who you are, be authentic and genuine situations and times. Because I feel like no one's going to forget, in our generation will forget 2020. And, so just be extra kind, do it with an authentic heart, and it'll come back to you for sure.
It will. Thank you for being on today with me. And we'll have to do this again with Jason and talk a little bit more depth with events. Anyway, thank you everybody for watching and for joining this week, and we'll be on again next week. So in the meantime, send me your questions if you have them about different areas of business that you need help with, and I'm happy to help however I can, answer your questions, point you in the right direction. That's the least I can do with my experience. So anyway, appreciate you all, and thanks for watching.